typically what I do is I go ahead and I interview teammates sharing their stories. And this video actually comes because Jacob, you and I had a private lesson. And in between the filming of the techniques that you were recapping, there was a lot of conversation going on. You're like, man, this is what we should be recording.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of like opened up the invite to teammates that if they had any questions for them to reach out to you. I know you've got a ton of them. So whenever you're ready, buddy, fire away.
Yeah. So let's just start at the beginning, right? How long have you been doing jujitsu?
I've been doing jujitsu for a little bit more than 17 years.
And you started when you were back at home in Chicago, when you moved here?
Yeah. So my friend Joel got me into Hapkido back in probably like 1994, 95. I just graduated high school. Trained Hapkido through black belt. And then UFC 2 came out. And I had no idea about UFC 1. UFC 2 came out. We rented it at Blockbuster. I'm like, oh my God, this is like amazing. And then there was a guy, Andre Campos, who started teaching jiu-jitsu in Orland Park. So I went there for a few months, and then I ended up going to Illinois State University, where college life took over, and I had a break from martial arts for easily 5-6 years.
Wow. And that, well, let me ask this first. This is a question from the team.
Mm-hmm.
You had did Hapkido first, and then you did jujitsu. Why? What was it about jujitsu that made you stick with it for so long versus Hapkido?
So with Hapkido, in the 90s in the suburbs of Chicago, it was either a Hapkido school or a Taekwondo school. And I went where my friends went. There was no internet back then to do research. So everything my friends were telling me, I went, I fell in love with it. With jujitsu, college life took over, and I put on a lot of weight. I was going to a gym, and I was lifting, running on the treadmills. And there was a guy at the gym who was a personal trainer who put a flyer up saying, "Hey, I'm going to offer, jujitsu classes." And I'm like, man, when I was training martial arts, that's when I was in the best shape of my life. So I got back on the mats with him. We were training 2 times a week. 2 times became 3. And fast forward, here we are 17 years later.
17 years. You said that you took some time off from
Mm-hmm.
martial arts. Is that the when you kind of got wrapped up in like the college lifestyle?
Yeah, so I came to Illinois State University. I was probably 22 years old. I was focused, on getting a job at a radio station. So I was putting in, all this work at the college radio station, learning the craft, the ins and outs. Um, and then with the friends that I had in college, it was, hey, classes are done. We're going out to a bar. We're going to the pizzeria, and we're drinking. And so that lifestyle really took over. And it wasn't until like maybe a year after graduating. I remember I went back home and I walked past um, the guest bathroom in my parents' house. And they had, the shower doors, and one of them was a mirror. And I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. I'm like, what in the hell is that?
Mm.
Because in my college apartment, I only had the mirror in the bathroom that was just like, low enough for you to like
Yeah.
shave your face, and that was it. And I remember seeing that reflection, like, oh my gosh, I've gotten big, And that's when I just started, looking at gyms to go lift and run. I wasn't even thinking about, martial arts training. And it wasn't until, when Bill put the flyer up that I'm like, that's where I need to be. I need to be there because, you'd go to the weight room and it's like, all right, man, I've done my reps. I'm kind of bored. Let me go home.
Yeah.
Where when you go to a martial arts class, I don't care what style you train, you've got teammates that are relying on you. You can't just go to class and be like, okay, I did my reps, I'm out of here. It's like, no, your teammates got to get their reps in, you got to get their rounds in, and so forth.
So a few other questions and things that kind of
Yeah.
align with this is when you first started out in jujitsu, what was the hardest thing for you? I mean, you've been doing jujitsu for 17 years. You know, you're a second degree black belt.
First degree,
You
first degree.
first
I'm
degree.
not that old.
First,
I'm not that old.
okay, but you're 17 years in. You know,
Mm-hmm.
what could you give white belts, people that are kind of nervous on the like? What was it that kind of helped you commit and stay?
Um, I think it was just leaving my ego at the door. And, I had an advantage. I had trained martial arts for 3-4 years prior to doing jujitsu. But if I go back to, my first day in Hapkido, it was because of the fact I saw the results my friends were
Yeah.
receiving from training martial arts. I was a kid growing up, when the Karate Kid came out, I wanted to go do karate. I was done with baseball. And my parents are like, there are no karate schools in the area. You're going to go do baseball because that's the way it is.
Mhm.
Um, and man, I did not enjoy playing baseball. I couldn't hit the ball. Um, you know, I could feel decently, but when I turned 18 and I saw what my friend was doing, and he would show me moves at work because we didn't have smartphones. He'd be
Yeah.
like, grab my wrist, grab my arm, look at this attack, look at this attack. And I'm like, this is awesome. So I went and back then, it's one of these things that I think kind of forced me into liking it was that I was 18. I didn't need mom and dad's permission. I went
Mm.
to the school, I did the free class, signed up right then and there. No questions asked. Like, I liked what we did. I want to do more of it. Fast forward, I think it was maybe 25 days, and my dad he comes home from work and he's like, hey, Ed, what did you buy? I'm like, I didn't buy anything. He's like, no, where's the car? I'm like, what do you mean, what car? Because at the time I had a buddy, Kevin, who would get a new car every 6 months,
Hmm.
right? He got tired of that Camaro. He traded it in. He got another Camaro. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, Dad. And my dad and I had the same first name. And he's like, well, look at this. You've got this booklet here of payments. And I'm like, Dad, I didn't buy a car. And he's going through and he's like, well, what is this Sporex martial arts? And I'm like, I got so excited. I'm like, oh, yeah. I started training Hapkido. And he's like, man, I hope you love it. And he's fanning through it. He's like,
Oh, yeah.
there's 36 payments that you're going to need to make on this, whether you love it or you hate it, because, I didn't think anything of it. I had locked myself into a 3-year agreement with a
Mm.
bank, not the
Oh,
school,
wow.
but the bank that bought the contracts from the school. So then my mind started really rolling where I would be like, okay, well, I'm paying, I want to say it was $85 a month. I'm like, well, if I just go to 2 classes a week and I do that for a month, this is what it is per class. But they offer a morning class. I can force myself to get up and go to the 7 a.m. class, shower, and then go off to my junior college to do my classes. So I played that system to where I'm going to get more bang for my dollar. I'm going to go to as many classes as I can. But when I was getting ready to go to Illinois State University, I was still under that original contract.
Wow.
And I went in to talk to the school owner, and the school owner's like, you still got to pay. But I'm going to be gone 9 months out of the year. Why am I paying for those months? And he's like, it's not me, it's the bank. And what they would do is they would transfer my membership to an affiliate school. But the problem was there was no affiliate school in Normal.
Mm.
So luckily for me, the the mileage requirement was 150 miles, and that just baffled me too, because like 150 miles, that's like almost an hour and a half, 2 hours one way to come train. Luckily, where my dorm was, it was 155 miles from the
Wow.
school. And this is back when you had to type it in like in MapQuest. There was
Yeah,
no like
yeah.
Google Maps telling
MapQuest.
you what to do. So I think being kind of like forced into that contract, really made me go to the classes, because
Hmm.
look, man, I'm a cheap ass. If I'm paying, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna get the
Hmm.
most out of it. Um, so I think that's what really got me into it, which made going to jujitsu a lot easier, because of the fact I knew, what the training was going to be like. Now, to come back to your question, if we look at it as, just jujitsu, from all the teammates that have come through our doors, and, the conversations that I have with them, it's always, I'm nervous. I don't know what to expect. And that's where, the one-on-one classes come
Right.
into play. So now you have that anxiety taken out, to where you're only on the mats with one other person, not 15 or more people. And then you can see that, hey, man, the hard part's over. I drove here and I walked through that door.
Mm. Okay. Wow. Why Hobson?
I have
Of
no idea.
Yeah, no
I mean,
idea.
no idea. I mean, in all honesty, it was, I just got done running on a treadmill, right? I saw the flyer. We're going to do jujitsu 2 times a week. So I'm training with Bill, and the gym that we were at, it wasn't a martial arts school. It was a fitness facility. And so Bill would have mats that he would roll out. So we'd have to show up early, roll out the mats, tape them down, train, clean the mats, untape them, roll them back up, and put them in the closet. Well, my understanding was that the gym owner saw all these people that were interested in jujitsu going to Bill, and basically gave Bill like an ultimatum that, hey, you got to give us a cut of what you're charging these guys, or you're out. Um, so Bill found another place to go and teach jujitsu. So I went with Bill. Um, that partnership with that school that we were at, it was like an MMA club. That really didn't work out.
Mm.
And again, my daily routine was, I get up, go to the radio station, do work, come home, spend time with my wife, go to jujitsu. That was it. I really wasn't doing a lot of research on jujitsu. And then Bill decided, you know what, I'm done teaching. Go meet this guy, Mike Lovaza, at the Academy of Mixed Martial Arts. He's a purple belt. And at the time, like, purple belts were unicorns. You you
Mm.
you knew they existed, but you never saw them. So I went and I trained with Mike. And if you talk with Mike, Mike will tell you, like, when I first came in, he's like, Ed's not going to last 6 months.
Mm. Why do you
And
think
so I
that?
trained with Mike, um, you know, all the way up until this day. I mean, he's still there. I didn't know anything about Robson Moura. That's who Mike was under. I remember the first workshop I went to for Robson. You know, no idea what the dude looks like, right? And everyone's like, "Oh, Master Robson Moura," and I'm thinking this
Yeah.
dude's gonna be like old, at least have some gray hairs. And I remember being at the workshop. I get there early, sitting around, and I see this little dude walking around, and I'm thinking, oh, like maybe this is the guy like that traveled with Hobson.
Yeah.
Maybe it's his son or whatever. And laid back, always talking with everybody. And he comes up to me and he introduces himself as Robson Moura, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is the first time I met you, and I'm expecting like this older, maybe a little bit more brittle, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
quote unquote master. And then that was it. And, just the way that like he treated me, I never felt the need to go anywhere else.
Mm. Um, when you were under Mike,
Mm-hmm.
what was it that gave you that initiation to start your own jujitsu school, to start frequency?
Dude, I'm gonna be honest with you. I had zero interest,
Really?
zero thoughts of ever running my own school. Um, I was working at a rock radio station at the time. Loved that job. Never saw myself doing anything else. I'm like, I'm going to be, an on air DJ until the day I die. Um, and as we're training, the school that we were at, Bill came back into the fold and he was training under Mike as well. But again, I'm Mr. Oblivious. I
Mm.
come in, change, do jujitsu, do my thing. Well, as time went by, I started seeing Mike less and less, and Bill was teaching more. And then Bill wasn't teaching. So then, like, I'd finally reach out to him, hey, guy, where you guys have been? you know and they told me, they're like, well, under the affiliation you have to pay kind of like a franchising fee,
Mm.
where it's like, hey, here's your monthly fee to be under the Robson Moura Jiu-Jitsu Association. And the school that they were at, apparently they weren't paying that fee. And Mike and Bill felt that, hey, if you're not paying Robson, we're not going to teach under Robson's banner. So we're done. They walked away. So um, they left. And then there was another guy, Casey, who was a blue belt at the time. He started teaching the adult classes. And the school
And
owner,
where were you when you were taking these classes?
this was at the Academy of Mixed Martial Arts in
Okay.
Bloomington.
Okay, so you were here
So
in
they were,
Illinois.
yeah. So it was here in Bloomington, and they were like a smorgasbord of martial arts. You had your jujitsu, you had boxing, you had Muay Thai, you had MMA. So Casey continued the adult jujitsu program, and the school moved a couple locations, and I started teaching the kids program out there.
Mm.
And when my youngest daughter Kelsey was getting ready to enter this world, I remember being at the hospital, getting a text message from the school owner saying, hey, when you have a chance, come by with your key because I'm ending the jiu-jitsu program. And I'm just like,
Wow.
what the hell is going on? Um, so I went, dropped off, the key, and that was it. And then about maybe 6 months later, Bill opened up the jiu-jitsu school under Robson, and we were training there. I think we had maybe like 9 teammates that were training
Mm.
consistently. And this was in maybe like around 2013, I
Okay.
think.
Okay.
So trained with Bill, and then around like the end of 2014, he sent me a message. Maybe it was a phone call saying, "Man, there's no interest in jujitsu here in the Bloomington area. I'm going to go ahead and close the school down. Maybe you should go try the other jujitsu school in town." And I don't want to go there. I like the group of people that I train with. I like Robson. So I talked to my wife, and I'm like, the way things are working at the radio station, my day is done at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. With the right amount of marketing, there can be a lot of growth here. And my wife is like, I'm going to give you 30 days.
30-day notice.
No, she was giving me 3 months. So I'm going to give
Okay.
you 3 months to put the money back into our savings account. I got the money back into our savings account in less than 30 days.
Wow.
Yeah. Um,
Wow.
so, and then that's when frequency, was born.
Do you think that there was any like major differences between the way that you started up frequency versus the way it was ran before? Because you had mentioned that like Bill said that there wasn't a lot of interest for jujitsu, and
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like you kind of kind of show that there is a lot of interest if you were able to replace that within a month.
Yeah, well, I mean, like when we started, it was a Gracie Baja school. That was the only other jiu-jitsu school in town. Now there's, I would say, probably maybe 8 jiu-jitsu clubs
Mm.
in town. And it was just, the marketing, and, not taking anything away from, the previous owners because, even at the MMA school, there wasn't a lot of advertising being done. Facebook in general was pretty new. I think what benefited me was I was coming from a business that there was a lot of marketing going on, whether I was helping businesses promote their restaurants or their car dealership. I saw what a consistent message would do over time. Um, and I just hit the ground running to do that. And, the school grew to the point where, so I opened up Frequency January of 2015. And then in April of 2018, I moved to the current location just because, we were outgrowing that facility and I knew there were things that needed to change within the layout of the facility to be more appealing to members. We were up on the second floor, and I know that if you've got a child and you're not in the best shape, walking up those flights of stairs could be a detriment to you signing your child up. We had one restroom. We didn't have a shower. And, when I was looking at the new location or the current location that we're at, it was the fact that, hey, I need to have at least 2 bathrooms. I need to have at least one shower. And my landlords really worked with me onto making those changes to the facility. And we've been doing it ever since.
That's awesome. So, a question about this specifically is what's something that you worried about before opening up the school that has ended up really not being that big of a deal?
Um, Initially buying the school or moving to the current location.
Just opening the school in general, like just opening up, taking that role.
Yeah. You know, would I be able to survive the first 5 years? Because with the background that I have in marketing, you know, I was always educating businesses that just opened up in town that, hey, what did you do to get to this point to open your business? What steps are you going to do to survive the first year, the second year, the fifth year? Um, and I knew that, it was going to be rough, but, at the same time, it wasn't my only job, right? I
Mm.
had another source of income with the radio station to take care of, my bills, my expenses. So I really didn't worry about that. But the big worry was 3 years in when I'm like, okay, it's time to move. And, the rent that I had at the first location was dirt cheap.
Mm.
We went from, I'll say it, my rent was like $400 a month at the old
Man.
location, right? My current location, it was almost 10 times that.
Oh wow.
So now I'm trying to look at going, okay, if I make this move, I can have the gym pay for the rent, cover the utilities. I can't I can't lose any students because if I lose students, now it's like, okay, maybe I don't run the water as much. Maybe I don't have the heat or AC cranked as much. Um, so that was like the worry. But again, 6 months into that location, the membership really started to grow because of the fact it was more appealing to parents and adult members that it wasn't underneath the center street bridge. It wasn't difficult to find. The parking lot was well lit. Things that you really didn't think about when you first decided to open a gym,
Mm. Mm.
or at least that
What
I didn't think about.
what was something that surprised you about being a school owner that you really didn't think about before starting frequency? Was there anything that kind of was like, oh, you know what, that was not on the list of worries?
Insurance.
Mm.
It's like, look, you know, you're a member, right? You came
Mm.
in, you signed your life away on that waiver, right? You didn't give it any thoughts.
Yeah.
But then, you got the insurance agent or the representative from the insurance company going over how many classes do you teach a week? What styles do you teach? What's the number of students that you typically have on the mats? And you're looking at it and they're running the calculations going, hey, based off of these numbers, this is what your insurance is going to be. And then you're like, okay, well, I need X number of members alone just to cover the insurance because it's, just like in life, you're paying for the insurance and you hope you never need it. God forbid should something happen. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, you were running a martial arts school without insurance? What are you, crazy? So yeah, that was something I really didn't think that much about. But luckily, like with Hobson's Association and the people in the association, when the talks were being brought up that I'm going to take over the affiliation, they kind of had like a checklist for me. Hey, make sure you have this, make sure you have that,
Mm.
you know.
So
So that
there
was
was people in
beneficial.
there were people in like the Hobson Moore community that really kind of helped you get off of that or onto your feet with the school.
Yeah.
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 Um, let's get a little bit more personal. There was
Mm-hmm.
something that really intrigued me. I had went through something recently that was really hard, and it actually kept me off the mats. And I know that you know about it. And it was just, we had some bad news about our kid, and luckily everything turned out well. And then we had to put our dog down. But um, I struggled with, I didn't show up for class, and so that made it really hard for me to feel like I'm connected. Jujitsu is my peace, my Zen moments. Um, was there ever a time in your life that you went through that period of I can't show up for jujitsu because I'm showing up for my personal life or outside of the mats?
Um, the longest breaks I ever took was a week when each of my daughters were born. But and this is still tough. It was 2 years ago. My dad passed away unexpectedly. I got a phone call from my sister. I was at work, and when I'm at work, I'm at work. You
Mm.
know, and my phone was on do not disturb, and for some reason I took a glance at it, and it was all these text messages from her. You got to call me. It's 911. Pick up your damn phone. Boom, boom, boom. So I called her, and she, shared the news. And it was one of those things where it's like, okay, my life has totally changed. And it was early in the morning. And, one of the coworkers, was asking me, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm going to work. I got to
Mm.
work because I know if I go home, I'm just going to wallow. Right. And I remember thinking, I'm not going to call my wife. I'm not going to call my girls. I'm going to let them go as far as they can through their day without me having to blow up their world. So I remember like the first thing I did, like when I got home, I sat in front of the computer and I sent an email out to the team. And I'm like, look, I'm going to try to be on the mats. But if I act differently, if I lash out, if I hide in my office, here's why. And, the flood of responses from teammates was unbelievable. And I don't think I'd be where I am today and be in the same state of mind if it wasn't for jujitsu. Because, you know, I was 46 years old. my world revolved around work, running the jiu-jitsu school, my kids, and my wife. I do not have a large social group outside of jiu-jitsu, right? So if I didn't have jiu-jitsu in my life, it was just be me, my girls, my wife, and my neighbors. Um, and because of jiu-jitsu, I felt that support. I was able to go to class, teach. I had other teammates that were willing to, hey, if you need the night off, go and do that. Um, so yeah, I mean that was the hardest thing I had to deal with since training. And again, I'm thankful for the teammates, the coaching staff, who really lifted me up in my darkest days.
Mm. Wow. I can relate because you were who I leaned on when I found out, and I felt bad because I kind of used you as a sounding board. But you're right in that the community that the community that you built that allows us to lean on each other more than just jujitsu uh, is invaluable. Um, and so it is inspiring to know that like the the guy, the black belt, the when you walk in, it's like your first class, you see that black belt approaching, you're like, oh my gosh, to know that that person can go through life on life's terms and still need to lean on the community of jujitsu is phenomenal. Thank you for sharing that. Uh, and kind of going with that same route, what was the biggest lesson that you have gained from your work in jujitsu?
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Um, Even going back as just being a student, um, you know, I, it sounds like it's a marketing pitch, but it's not, because if you've spent any time on the mats, you realize that jujitsu really opens your mind. You could have, you know, a way of thinking, but when you come into jujitsu, you start opening up your mind to other possibilities, you know. And again, it's like if you were to walk into any jujitsu school across the country, you can't tell who the doctor is, who the lawyer is, who the blue collar worker is, who's the Democrat, who's the Republican. It's just people that are on the mats that are looking to improve their physical and mental health by training jujitsu. Um, I have made so many connections and friendships in jujitsu that when it came time for me to move forward and open up a school, I had that confidence. And it's something that you and I, had spoken about, before, where the fact that, you think confidence is just for kids in martial arts. But, adults need to recharge and improve their confidence as well, because, you could go to work and just get beaten down by your boss, get beaten down, by coworkers and all the negativity that may come with, the job that you may have. And you need a place to escape. And for me, that was always, the jujitsu mats, because I'm not the type of guy to go home and vent to my family about how crummy of the day was, because I feel if I'm doing that, they're going to think that's acceptable behavior. And then they just carry that with them throughout their teen years, throughout early adulthood, and into their adult life. Um, so that would be one of the things that I think I really benefited from being on the jujitsu mats.
You had mentioned earlier that when you came into class, you had to kind of drop that ego, right? Do
Yeah,
you feel like ego is the killer of long term jujitsu? Is that the biggest killer, I should say?
yeah, because at like when you first come in, like I've seen it where guys who are, 250 pounds in really good shape, They think they can manhandle somebody. And I put them in with one of, our female coaches who leads, the intro classes, and they're getting thrown around all over. And they look at it going, how in the heck is this little woman able to do this to me? It's because she's been doing it for a long time. She understands the positions. She's not freaked out because someone bigger than them is trying to smash them. And they execute the technique. They're not relying on their strength. And while you're coming in 250 pounds, lean muscle, you're using your strength, you're gassing your body out, and now it's easier for her to take advantage of you. I've also seen guys who have been training for a long time, and their ego ruins their progression because they see other teammates getting promoted faster than them. Mm. And I always tell people, everyone on the mat progresses differently. You're going to have some people who could see a move once. They could go in, they can drill it, they can execute it in live rounds within like the first 2 weeks. Meanwhile, you've got teammates who'll be shown a move, they can drill it, but they're not able to execute it when they want to and be effective for 6 months, a year. And they look at that as, an issue, and they stop coming. Whereas if you were to just keep coming, you're going to get better. And I try to tell people too, it's like, you've got your belt system, right? But the thing is there's all these off branches, because my journey to my black belt is going to be a lot different than your journey to your black belt. Because, when you get to purple belt, you're starting to really get into your game. And when you get that invite to the brown belt club, now you're really polishing up your game at brown belt. And then, when Hobson called me out, for my black belt, it's like, oh crap, now what? Now it's like, I have a black belt from Robson Moura based off of my jiu-jitsu game. Okay. And, a lot of guys don't understand that. It's like they train, they get to that blue belt. A lot of guys quit at blue belt. The guys that stick around, they train. They get to that purple belt, and then they see that, individuals that were blue belts with them are on the verge of getting brown belt. And they're like, I'm not doing this anymore. And the conversations that I always have with them is, everyone's journey is different. The people that you are comparing yourself to, they're on the mats 5-7 times a week. You're on the mats 5 times a month. The progress is going to be a lot different. But at the same time, you really shouldn't be comparing yourself to your teammates. If you are, let's just look at what I would consider a basic move. A scissor sweep. When you first learn the scissor sweep, it's very hard for you to hit that scissor sweep in a live round, right? Great. Because the teammates that you're training with, they know, oh, that's all Jacob knows is that scissor sweep. I'm good. But the more you start threatening with different sweeps, different submissions, now all of a sudden, they're not 100% sure what technique you're going to be using. And now all of a sudden you hit that scissor sweep on them, and you're like, oh my goodness, did everyone see that? I hit a scissor sweep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how you got to really judge your progress. It's like, do I understand the scissor sweep better today than I did 15 days ago? Am I able to execute the scissor sweep whenever I want and be successful with it? And if not, okay, we'll go back to the drawing board. See what you got to do to tweak to make changes to your game.
I'm glad that you touched on the progression piece, because a few questions have come in about that specifically, where they feel stuck. They feel like their progress isn't equal to theirs. The comparison as well. And so sometimes they either stop showing up to class, or they take a break, right? For those people, what advice would you give them in that moment? Because I'm sure you've been there 17 years on the mat. There's been a
Yeah.
moment where maybe you have compared yourself. What advice do you have for them?
Um, and this is just me as a student of jiu-jitsu. Go to class,
Mm,
right? And when I reach out to teammates, I think that's the hardest part for them to maybe understand is that I'm not reaching out to them as the school owner,
yeah.
saying, "Hey, Jacob, it's been 2 weeks since you've been to class. Come to class. I don't want you to cancel that membership." It's like, no, it's like, I've been on the mat 17 years. I know you're going to have peaks, valleys, plateaus. Um, but those peaks are going to be shorter. The valleys are going to be deeper. The plateaus are going to be longer the less time you spend away from your teammates, right? Even if it's like, man, I'm not in the mood to train, go to the gym and just observe class. You learn jujitsu by doing jujitsu, talking about jujitsu, watching jujitsu, right? So again, if whether you're a member of Frequency or you're someone who's training, jujitsu, and you've taken some time off the mats, one, understand that everyone does it. Two, your teammates, they're going to be excited to see you back on the mats.
Yeah.
And don't worry about the fact that I've been off for 2 weeks. I've been off for 6 months. Remember what motivated you to go to jiu-jitsu the first time. Try to find that spark again and go and just focus on you. Can I escape a mount?
Mm,
Can I control top side control? Can I hit a cross collar choke? Just work on those little things to get better. I shared a story. I was a purple belt for like 7, 8 years, and it used to be clockwork for me where I would come in, I would train. And what I take pride on is that I got my first stripe on my white belt while under Mike Lavazza, under the Robson Moura Jiu Jitsu Association. I've been with Robson since day one. I remember Robson came in for a workshop, and typically it was you go the whole year. Robson comes in, and your coach gives Robson, the progress report. Hey, these are the guys that I feel are ready for a stripe, ready for a belt promotion, whatever it may be. And during the course of the weekend, you as a student, you don't realize it, but Robson is walking around. He's watching you do jujitsu. He's rolling with you to feel,
mm,
your jujitsu. Do you understand your body? Um, and there was a time he came in where Mateus came in for the first time. Mateus was a blue belt. He had just gotten his blue belt, so he had to be about like 16 years old. And I'm a lot bigger than Mateus. And I remember we were just like sitting around killing time, and Robson just looked at us, and it was like turning it into a fight club. He's like, instead of sitting around, why don't you two roll? And I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. Mateus mopped the floor with him, you know? And I remember at the end of the workshop, Hobson's calling everyone out. My name didn't get called. No stripe for Ed. Okay, I can sit around and I can pout, or
mm,
I can be like, you know what? I really need to get better at X, Y, and Z. I'm back on the mats going through all this stuff. And then second year came by. I had, and this was it the first year? I think it might have been the first year that I owned the school. Okay. And this goes to show you that just because you pay money, just because you're the school owner, doesn't mean you get a free pass.
yeah. Yeah.
I remember Hobson coming in again, and it was like, no strike for Ed. It's like, God dang. I'm competing. I'm coming in like second, I haven't won a lot of gold at the purple belt level, but I'm teaching, I'm training, I'm competing. Where's my payday, right? So 2017 rolls around, and I go to the RMNU camp. They got a team dinner there, and Hobson's doing these awards, the instructor of the year, school of the year, competitor of the year. And I'm just like, man, I don't compete enough like the other guys in these 44 schools across the globe. So there's no way I'm competitor of the year. And I go, I'm a purple belt. There's no way I'm getting instructor of the year. So they're doing the school of the year. I'm like, well, frequency's been doing really good, been growing. Maybe I'm going to get that. I didn't get that. I'm like, all right. So Hobson's giving this speech about the school owner. And he's going through, he's like, man, this guy's got a full-time job. I see what he does with his kids, and he's always there for his family, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, man, he could be talking about like anybody. And then he calls my name, and I'm just like blown away, right? So that was Saturday night at the team dinner. The following morning, it's the last day of the camp, he calls me out, and I get my third and fourth stripe on my purple belt.
Wow.
And it's just like, oh, dang, the weight's been lifted. It's like he's seeing and he's feeling, what I'm doing. So, yeah, I just tell guys, it's like, keep coming. You may not get a stripe today, but your coaches are there. And then the other thing is, too, it's like, I think there's a difference between going up to your coach and saying, hey, I think I'm ready for, my stripe, or I'm ready for my belt promotion. Whereas, do a private lesson and, ask your coach, hey, what are some things that you've seen when I'm rolling with other teammates? What are some things that I'm doing when I'm rolling with you that you feel that I need to improve upon? And you work on that, because if all you're doing when you go to jiu-jitsu, now this is just me speaking, if you're constantly just going in and doing what you were good at and you're getting everyone to tap, yeah, you're getting a lot of submissions, but you may not be growing your jiu-jitsu game, right? Because all you're doing is your A game. You're not experimenting with different positions.
Mm. And a caveat to that last question
Yeah.
is, what about people that have, medical stuff? They hurt their knees or their shoulders. Have you ever had anything like that happen to you, where you've had to take medical time off? And what can you give to kind of encourage those people that have to get that strength to come back?
Yeah. So in 2020, I had to have the bursa sac removed from my left kneecap.
Mm.
And basically what was happening was my knee would just swell with fluid. And after having it drained 3 times in the course of like 2 months, the orthopedic surgeon is like, hey, we should really just go in and remove it, because, for some reason the bursa sac is not getting the message that it's healed, and it just keeps filling with fluid. So I had to take time off the mats. Thankfully, I have an amazing coaching staff at the school that was able to spearhead, the youth program, cover the adult classes. And even though I was a school owner, I think even if I was just the student, I still would have been at the school just watching and observing, and go from there. So, yeah, you're going to, sooner or later it's going to happen. You're going to get injured on the jiu-jitsu mats, whether it's a shoulder, a knee, really bad tennis elbow. But if one of the reasons why you're training jiu-jitsu is for self-defense, your attacker isn't going to ease up on you because you've got a hurt elbow
Yeah.
or you've got a hurt knee. So you have to find ways to defend yourself with an injury. Now, that's not saying you got to go out and you got to roll, right? But you can come to class and you can work around your injury so that, one, you are working that self-defense. 2, you're still taking care of your body physically and mentally. And then once you are comfortable enough to start rolling again, then start rolling. And I always tell guys, like, if you've got, an injured knee or, an injured arm, let your teammates know, and you're not obligated to roll with everybody. If, there's somebody on your team that rolls really hard, that's your restaurant. Hey, I'm going to sit out. You could go ahead and roll with these other people, and I'm good because no one's going to judge you that, oh man, you didn't roll with Coach Ed, or you didn't roll with Coach James. It's like, no man, my arm is sore or my shoulder's sore, and if it's better for you to just drill.
Mm. Okay. Um, you'd mentioned earlier that you competed. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to talk a little bit about other schools because I know that some schools they
Sure.
kind of require you to compete,
Yeah.
and that's not necessarily the case for frequency. Is there
Correct.
is there a reason for that difference?
Yeah, I think I come into it as an individual who has kids, right? And I know that, with my kids' activities, during the summer, we could be out of town every single weekend for travel softball, whatever it may be. In the fall, same thing. Their sports schedule takes you out, right? So I don't think, for me personally, I don't feel that you have to compete in order to progress in jiu-jitsu. I feel that your belt is more of a representation of the knowledge that you have of jiu-jitsu at your current stage in your journey. Now, I'll have teammates that will go and they will compete. If I look at it and going, well, man, they're coming to class, they're putting in the work, they're able to execute the moves, but they're constantly winning their division. It's like, well, man, I don't want you to be a sandbagger,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're competing at the white belt level and for, 6 months, you've competed maybe 20 times and you've constantly won your division. All right, you're getting promoted. Let's see what you can do at the blue belt level. Um, and again, like I had this guy G2 from Kazakhstan. Um, he came in, he trained jujitsu, he fell in love with jujitsu, and this is before the pandemic. He got in touch with my friend Tim that was running Fuji tournaments in the region, and he would just travel with him, setting up all the mats and whatnot, and he would compete. And he would constantly do extremely well at the white belt level. All right, man, you've been doing this long enough. We're gonna fast track you, to the blue belt and see how you do. Meanwhile, you'll have guys who are like, they're competing, but they're not doing well at blue belt level or purple belt level, and they feel that I should be a brown belt. It's like, well, okay, true, but I have to look at the full picture now. You're somebody who's going to go and compete, right? If you're not doing well at the purple belt level, I I can't promote you to brown belt because now when you go to brown belt, you're going to be going against guys who are on the verge of being promoted to black belt, right? There's no division of it's a one stripe purple belt division.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
two.
yeah,
No, it's like, hey, purple belt weight class,
yeah.
right? And the same thing with blue belts. When you're a blue belt, you're on the verge of going against you know individuals who are on the verge of getting their purple belt. So while I don't require teammates to go and compete, I it's twofold, right? If you are someone who wants to be a competitor, I'll look at that as a gauge
Yeah.
for your promotion. You can execute the technique flawlessly on the mats, you can coach it, but if your passion is competing, you got to be constantly getting on that podium every tournament that you go to. And I know it's not always going to be your day, but I have to make sure that you are ready when you go and compete. You've got guys that they train 5 days a week and they go and they perform extremely well on the mats. Meanwhile, you'll have teammates that'll go, they compete five or not compete, but they train 5 times a month, and they're not performing well in tournaments, but yet they see that their teammate is being promoted. They feel they should be promoted too. Um, and it's not going to work because everybody's journey is different.
Just like you shared before, everybody's journey is different. Their progress is different.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing to that is there any traditions that when you first started jujitsu, you have carried on to today?
Um, no, I mean we're pretty laid back.
Hmm.
I remember when I first started, when you would get promoted, you would do the belt gauntlet. You would take your gi jacket off,
Yeah.
and then everyone would smack you on the back. Um, that pretty much stopped when I opened frequency. Um, there wasn't any reason, behind it. Um, so, I mean, yeah, that would be like the one thing that we don't do.
It something else that I find interesting is that you're very easy to ask to roll. I'm a white belt, well green belt, but
Yeah.
uh, and I can ask you to roll. Now, not certain other schools, and that's not commonplace. What do you have any thoughts on that? Do you have any opinions on that?
Um, I think I think at the end of the day, you're all teammates,
Mm,
right? And if I'm a white belt and I want to get better, I got to one show up to class and I got to roll. And I feel like I should be able to go to a purple belt that's at my school and ask them to roll with me. I should be able to go to my head instructor and ask them to roll with me. Um, Other schools, they're more into the history, and this is the way it's always been done. You wait for the black belt to approach you. I think that was like one of the benefits of being under Hobson's affiliation is the fact that every year he's got a camp in Tampa where I started going to his second camp, and I've been to all the camps since. But when I went, I was a blue belt, and they would have days where it's like, all right, this hour is a king of the mats. We're putting all the brown belts down. Everyone else, you line up and you jump in with a brown
oh
belt.
wow.
So there wasn't none of this. Hey, can I roll with you? It's like Hobson told me to come roll with you, so here I am, and that just kind of came back with me to the school. It's like, man, there are no egos here. You know, yes, I'm a black belt, but I'm not on a pedestal. Where you can't approach me. If you want to roll, if I can help you get better, I'll help you get better.
Mm. Um, a few other questions. I know we're kind of
Yeah.
running on time, but um,
No, there's no time limit here.
okay,
Yeah, if
then
you
all
want to
right.
keep asking away, keep asking away.
All right. So then my next question, it's I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory. You have competed. You have opened up a gym. You've had a job. You have a wife. You have two children. How do you balance all of these hats and still maintain your sanity?
Um, I'm gonna tell you, it was tough when my girls were younger. Because my wife would drive them to different activities. I would drive them to some activities. But at the end of the day, you know, they know that I'm doing this to make their lives better. Um, would I love to be home? Yeah, I'd love to be home. But at the same time, too, I'm fortunate because I had 9 years of running the jujitsu school while having another full time job. It wasn't until April of 2024 when that other job went away. So now it's like the school not only pays for itself, but it takes care of the mortgage. It helps me pay my bills. I don't have the flexible income like I once had to do whatever things or and whatnot, but they know that, hey, this is the way that dad is putting you know food on the table. So that's that, and we've got classes at 5 a.m. in the morning that I teach, so I'm in bed usually by 9:30 every night. it's gotten easier because as my daughters have gotten older, they no longer want to hang out with dad. They want to go hang out with their friends and do their things. And with my oldest now able to drive, that's taken some of the pressure off of me and my wife trying to get them to their activities. But my advice to anyone who's looking to whether it's train martial arts, specifically jujitsu, or go to the gym and lift weights is if you're not healthy, your family is going to suffer.
Mm.
Okay. You're going to have medical conditions down the road. And we kind of like, if we circle back to like my knee injury, right? So when I had to do the physical therapy, they originally had me down for 2 times a week for, I think it was like 8 weeks. And after, like during my third visit, they're like, what are you doing? Because we're seeing a faster recovery rate than we typically see with individuals your age with this injury. I'm like, well, I'm doing the stretches that you've sent me home to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie, I've been going back to jujitsu and I've been only rolling with people who I've been rolling with for 5 years, right? I'm not rolling with anybody new. And we're just flow rolling. We're not going hard. I'm just like, can I put pressure on my leg? And I was off my crutches, faster than if
Mm.
I would have just been
Mm.
sitting in a recliner. And you got to find the things that, like Hobson says, you got to find the things that bring you joy. And you got to do those things because if you're not happy, guess what? Your spouse is going to pick up on it. Your kids are going to pick up on it. And then that's just going to make them kind of walk around on eggshells around you. And I don't want that for my kids. I don't want that for my wife. So yeah, I would just tell people, go and train, take care of yourself physically and mentally.
Mm. Um, and in the 17 years that you trained, I know we keep hitting on that because it's a long time, right?
Yeah.
That's so it's important that like I think that's a super important thing. It's 17 years. So in 17 years, you have seen people come and go off the mats, right?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming a lot of people come and go off the mats. Has there been any for people that are newer, right? Like I mean, I've only been training for a year, but I've seen people come and go. Um, what what is that like 17 years later, right? What is that like to see what am I guess what I'm really trying to get at is after getting to the point that you have gotten, how many people are left that you started with? And what does
Wow.
that feel like?
Well, one, in 17 years, not only has my life changed, but individuals that I started with, their circumstances have changed, and that's maybe why they stopped training. You know, we're located in a college town. So, I would say four of the guys that I started with under Bill, um, they graduated college and they went back home and, we lost touch. Um, you know, I've seen people come and go, like you said. Um, you know, I always look at it as, man, I've got these purple belts that started with me day one. And I feel like at their stage in their jiu-jitsu journey that they've got more knowledge than I did at a purple belt level.
Mm.
Um, and, I don't question, I mean, I might prod a
Yeah.
little bit, like, your situation's different because like, well, actually let's go all the way back to the
Yeah.
beginning,
Yeah.
right? So like, for those of you who don't know Jacob, he reached out to me like 3 years before his intro class, wanted to try jujitsu. And, you got emails, you got text messages from me, nothing. And then I got to the point where it's like, okay, well, these are people who haven't gotten back to me in 3 years.
Mm.
I'm just going to send them an email. I'm removing you from our contact list. If you ever want to try jujitsu again, give me a call. And that's really what motivated you
Yeah.
to come in, do your class. And from that day, like the bug bit you right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
You know, you were coming like 2 times a week.
Yeah.
You lost like what, like 90 pounds was like in your
Yeah.
first 8 months,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Um, and then, you know, you took 2 weeks off, right? But you flipped the tables on me. You reached out to me to let me know while you were
Mm.
gone. Um, on the way it works, 99.9% of the time, once someone hasn't checked in 2 weeks, I'm sending them a text message. Hey, you know, you want to talk? What's going on? Haven't seen you in a while. And I know that, you know, priorities change, and hey, you know what? It's not for me. What always baffles me as a school owner and somebody who's, you know, received the benefits from training jujitsu is when I get guys who they come in, they sign up, and like, I'm all in. And then all of a sudden they disappear for like 5 months. And they're like, I want to cancel my membership. I'm like, all right, cool. You know, what led you to you wanting to cancel? Um, you know, is it, you know, the number of classes that we offer, you know, because, you know, we've got 12 classes a week, 5 a.m., 6:30 a.m., 12:30 in the afternoon, evening classes. So regardless of how hectic your schedule may be, you've got time to get on the mats for 2 times a week. And it would always be like, I'm not seeing the results that I thought I would get from training jujitsu for like,
Yeah.
you know, 6 months. All right, cool. So I'd go in and I type them into the portal and see, it's like, oh, geez, Jacob hasn't been to class not only 2 weeks, he hasn't been to class in like 3 months.
Yeah.
He's only attended 7 classes in 6 months. How are you going to see any results if you're not coming in and putting in the work? You know, and then the other thing too is like I'll have guys, because we do offer 16 classes. They're like, oh man, I need to cancel my membership. And I'm like, why? Like, oh man, I can only make it to 3 classes a week. I'm like, man, when I first started training jujitsu, I had Tuesday night and I had Thursday night. That was it. You know, you've got all these classes that you could come to, and you know, the average person, 3 classes a week, that's more than enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's, you know, kind of disheartening, you know, when someone's like, man, you know, I can only make 3 out of the 15 classes. But it's like, man, in all honesty, 3 classes is plenty. You know, I don't
Yep.
want to burn you out.
Yep. Primo. Um,
Yeah.
why do you offer so many, options for classes?
That very reason, right? Because, you know, I remember when my daughters were doing activities, whether it was dance, ballet, martial arts, you know, they were set in this schedule. And it's like, okay, well, if you've got a kid in an activity, okay, I got to be there to drive her there,
Mm-hmm.
stay there, watch her, and take her. Well, if that happens to fall on a Tuesday night, well, man, I can't sign up for your jujitsu program because I can't make Tuesdays,
Yeah.
right? And I'm fortunate because we've got an amazing coaching staff that I'm not teaching all the classes, right? You know, I'm there Tuesday, Thursday night to teach the adult classes. We've got Coach James doing Monday, Wednesday night. We've got Coach April, Coach John leading the youth program throughout the week. But I am there 5 a.m. Monday through Friday, and Coach Brianna's there for the 6:30 classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Um, because of the fact everyone's schedule is different, you know, and you know I would rather have that large selection where, hey, you know, maybe like this month, your schedule allows you to be in the evening classes. But next month, your kid is starting an activity. You can't be there at the night class. So rather than you canceling your membership or paying for a membership you can't use, how bad do you really want to be healthy?
Fair point.
All right, man, I'll make the commitment 2 times a week. I'll go to the 5 a.m. classes, or you know what? I'll do the 6:30 a.m. classes. I'll get up while, you know, my kids and my wife are still sleeping, go do the morning class, get home, you know, as they're waking up, see them off to school, shower, and I'm off doing my thing. Um, So, it's just giving them, those options.
Yeah. You offer kids classes, and you
Hmm.
said that now. Did your kids ever do jujitsu? They must
Yeah.
have at some point.
Yeah. So my oldest daughter, Bree, she was one of the first youth members at the school. And then I tried getting my youngest daughter, Kelsey, to do it, and she had zero interest. And I remember, they'd get home from school. I'd pack them up in the Jeep. We'd go off to jujitsu. And then my wife would come towards the end of class. Class would be over. She would take them home and take care of dinner while I stayed and taught the adult class. And I remember being on the mats, and I saw my oldest daughter, Brianna, looking at me. And she's like, my back is to what at the time was my office. And she's giving me this look like, Dad, look behind you. And as I look behind me, Kelsey's struggling to get her gi pants on and her jacket. I'm like, oh my God, you took your gi down. This is like a proud daddy moment.
Yeah.
Um, but again, things happen, right? And I know the benefits of jujitsu, but I also know what it's like to be told you have to do something.
Mhm.
You lose the love for that because you're being told you have to do it. So my daughters went off and pursued other interests. And, my hope is that one day they decide, you know what? I want to go back and do jujitsu. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but hopefully one day, they'll realize that, hey, you know what, I can do this. We'll go to the women's only program. We'll do that for a while, and then we'll go into the main adult class. So yeah, my kids did it, and would I love to have them on the mats? Yeah. Am I going to force them? No, because I have to be home with them. And I don't want them to look at me as the coach and the dad, right?
That part.
Um, and that was the thing too, is like when they were in the kids program, they went on the nights when I wasn't the head youth coach.
Mm.
So they were on the mats. They had another coach, and I was just kind of like in the background taking photos.
Okay. On the kids class, I actually had
Mm-hmm.
a parent reach out to me recently, and it was disheartening because their child had gotten bullied, and so they had seen that I, go to jujitsu and frequency and all that, and so we're kind of just discussing it. And um, what advice would you give a parent that's concerned for the safety of their kid, and you know, w- how do you feel um, that will help benefit them with that confidence that we spoke about earlier?
Yeah. Um, it's not an 80s montage, You're not going to put your kid in jujitsu day one, and then by the end of the week, they're this anti bully machine, right?
Yeah.
Um, you have to treat it, like swimming, right? If you want your child to be safe around water, you want them to have those lessons, how to stay calm if they fall in, how to stay calm if, they're not near a boat, they're not near shore, right? So they don't panic. Um, and then you're going to have it where your kid is going to tell you, I don't want to go to jujitsu today. It's like, think about it. If you were 8 years old, you come home from school, you're playing video games, or you're out playing with your friends, what's going to be going through your mind when mom or dad comes in and says, hey, Jacob, boom, grab your stuff. We got to go to jujitsu. It's like, man, you're taking me away from something I love doing right now. I'm playing with my friends. I'm about to beat this level in this video game. Now you're taking me to jujitsu where Coach Ed or Coach April is going to be telling me to do push-ups and sit-ups, and I'm going to have a teammate trying to armbar me. Um, so my advice is, if jujitsu starts at 5:30, at 5 o'clock, give your child a task, whether it's emptying the dishwasher, getting the pots and pans ready for dinner, cleaning the room, laundry, whatever it may be, and then 15 minutes in, boom, Jacob, grab your jiu-jitsu gear. We're going off to jiu-jitsu. Now you're taking them away from something they really don't want to be doing. You
Mm-hmm.
know, what
Mm-hmm.
8-year-old wants to be cleaning the room? You know, and now you're taking them off to jiu-jitsu, and be a part of it, right? Don't be coaching your kid from the sidelines, but observe what they're doing, right? And have conversations with them on the way home. Hey, what was the hard part of jiu-jitsu today? What was it that you enjoyed? And remind yourself as the parent why you put your child into the jiu-jitsu program, right? If it's a bully situation, right? Don't pull your kid out of the jiu-jitsu program because your child is telling you, I don't like the close contact. Because what's going to happen in a bully situation?
Close
If it gets
contact.
physical, there's going to be a lot of close contact. So, my parenting advice would be, let's do what's best for your child, you know, and go from there.
Okay. Um, in that same regard, when we talk about, um, you had mentioned that there's a women's class that
Mm-hmm.
we right. Um, it was a mother that had reached out, and she was interested in doing the same thing. What what advice can you talk about, just in like the fact that you're a school that offers a women's only class?
Yeah. And that's really for any female that's watching this. This is really an icebreaker for you to get comfortable with jujitsu movements with strangers. And basically, what happens is I'll have a female come in. I just want to do the women's only class. All right, cool. 3 weeks in, they're like, hey, after hearing all the other ladies talking about what it's like training in the main adult class, it doesn't seem like the guys are a bunch of creeps.
Hmm.
You know, I want to go and train with them because, like I tell my daughters, it's like, look, when you come back, I want you to be in the main adult class. You could go on days when I'm not there, but understand it may feel weird rolling with a teammate that is a male, but you're a teenager. Chances are very good that if you are going to be attacked, it's going to be by someone of the opposite sex, sadly. Okay. I want you to be able to recognize when there might be a potential risk for danger, try to avoid the physical confrontation altogether.
Hmm.
But God forbid, should it become a physical confrontation, I want you to be able to get home to me. I don't care what you have to do it, right? Um, like in our kids program, we tell them we're not punching here, right? Because these are our teammates. But if it's important for my daughter to get home to me safely and she needs to bite their ear or bite their nose, I want you to do that.
Yeah.
And with the women's program, it's the same thing. It's like, I want you to get comfortable having another teammate on top of you so that if you are in a bad situation, you're aware of your surroundings. You understand how you can defend yourself, and improve your position so that you can get out of that situation. And, the self defense jujitsu is different than sports jujitsu. In sports jujitsu, I'm trying to stay tight. I'm trying to get that submission for the win. Self defense jujitsu, I'm trying to end this confrontation as quickly as possible and getting away. Now, that doesn't mean that, hey, if you're attacking me and I bridge and I put you on your back, I can see where my exits are. I'm not going to try to stay there and pummel you into the
Mm-hmm.
ground.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at, can I slow you down and get my escape, right? And go from there. So, if there's a female out there who's interested, try the women's only program. If you're comfortable there, to me, that's a lot better than staying at home or going to a women's self-defense workshop for 3 hours and then 6 months later trying to recall what went over in that workshop to get yourself out of a situation.
Great. You had spoken on like guys kind of being creepy, right, when rolling with
Mm-hmm.
women. It's like it's a thing that's been in the jiu-jitsu community has been talked about a lot. Has that occurred at frequency? And is if it has, what was the deal? Like, what do you do to ensure the comfortability of everybody that's rolling?
Yeah. So again, like that's the other thing. Like as a school owner, I never once thought about that until
Mm,
I was a school owner. Um, I'm trying to think in the 10 years that I've run frequency, there was there's only one issue, and it was like maybe like 10 years ago, where a guy came in, all he wanted to do was roll with the ladies, and it's
huh,
like, sorry, it doesn't work that way.
yeah.
You know, if it kind of also goes back to your your questioning of going up to a black belt and
Mm,
asking, right? At frequency, I don't go up to the ladies, hey, you want to roll? I let them approach me. Okay. Um, and I always tell the ladies, like, if you don't want to roll, don't roll. If you feel someone is being creepy to you, you need to tell me. Because if they're being creepy to you, they're being creepy to somebody else, that's not the atmosphere that we want. I want my wife to be able to walk in and roll with everybody on the team, and I want her to be treated as if she was my wife without them knowing that she's
yeah,
my wife, if
yeah,
that makes sense.
100%.
So yeah, I always tell them, it's like, hey, if you're getting the wrong vibes, let me know, and I nip it in the bud right
Yeah.
away. But again, I haven't had to do anything like that in 9 years, and that was an actual intro student that only came to roll
Mm,
with females, and it's like, you know what? While I'm a business, I don't need your membership to make the ladies on the team feel uncomfortable.
mm, mm. That takes a lot of, morals, values, beliefs to stick by that. I mean, like you said, yes, you are a business, but the comfortability of the people that come here and benefit is more important to you. And
Mm-hmm.
it's hard because sometimes you don't see that type of morality, right, when it comes to businesses. Um, when we talk about women, men rolling together, um, is there like, like again, I've never been anywhere else, so I'm only going off of like pretty much Facebook. So,
Mm-hmm.
please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, are there rules that you would suggest for men that roll with women, in that type of aspect? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I look at it as, while the women on our team are older than my daughters, I treat them as if they are my daughters,
Mm,
right? So I'm mindful of where my hands go, what certain submissions I go for, how much pressure I apply on them, right? Because, like, if you and I were to roll, right? Granted, I've got 16 years of jujitsu experience on you. But at the same time, when we're rolling, if I have to go hard, I'm going to go hard, right? And I don't care what I'm grabbing, like if I'm opening up your collar or
mm-hmm.
whatnot. With the ladies on the team, I got to be mindful for obvious reasons,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So maybe I don't play collar attacks as much. Maybe I don't use the collar grip, to set up my guard passing. Maybe I'm more of, kind of like a no gi approach, where my hands are controlling their hips as I'm looking to pass. Maybe when I get, a mount position, I'm not putting grapevines in and trying to smash them into
Mm,
the mats. Um, it's like there is a physical difference between men and women. Now, if I take my my ability of aggression and my strength out of the picture and I roll with the ladies on the team, I feel we both get a better roll in
mm-hmm.
those 5 minutes. Because, like, have you rolled with Professor Lavazza?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Look, he's third degree black belt. I feel like I'm a brand new white belt when I roll with him,
Mm,
because he could just do whatever he wants. And, while I could do that to the females on the team, it's not going to be a fun experience for them. So maybe I only go 50%. Some of them are so good technique wise, I have to go 100%, but I'm not playing, you know, full submission,
Hmm.
right? It's like, hey, I caught your wrist, I'm gonna let you go. But more than that, I'm playing a very defensive game against them.
Okay. Um, yeah, because I mean, like just last night, I was rolling with a female purple belt, and she ate ate my lunch.
Mm-hmm.
So it's beneficial to know that, like, okay, even you are pretty mindful, of like how you roll, and not to say that you are going easy or giving them a pass or a slide because they're females. It's just to say that, like, there is differences in areas, and be mindful of those differences.
Yeah.
That's invaluable. What is your favorite submission? Let's get a little silly here. What is your favorite submission?
Oh my goodness. My favorite would be the clock choke.
Okay, why?
Um, Man, I don't know, something like maybe like when I was in a blue belt. I just found a lot of success with it. I found myself, having teammates or opponents go to the turtle position a lot. Hobson just showed a video on his Instagram page in late February of him transitioning from like a back control to an over the shoulder flip where he comes up and he hits the clock choke. And I'm like, I've never thought of that sequence ever. So I'm like, can I pull this off? And it's like, man, sure enough, it's like, boom, I've got back control. My teammate, kind of pushes back into me. I change my hooks and I flip them. I'm like, man, that feels good. So I like that. I love the Brabo lapel choke series. Um, and those are, I think if you were to play jujitsu with me and we were to roll, you'd see that that's kind of what I'm looking for.
Okay. What is the like fanciest move you feel like you can hit pretty well?
Oh, the fanciest move. I'm a basic guy.
Yeah.
Um, like if I can do like so like the fanciest move I think for me, that I can hit consistently, not all the time, but consistently, is like if I'm playing like an X guard. And from the X guard, I can get your leg over, go to a crab ride, and sit you out. So now that you know that, I like going for that crab ride, I'm going to look for that crab ride to flip you over and go for that clock choke.
Yeah.
So yeah, so my game is pretty basic. There's not a lot of flash. There's not a lot of inverting. But like Coach John, again, this is March 2025. He's a three stripe purple belt. He loves inverting. So I
Mm.
think anytime he does a lesson plan and I'm able to not only perform what he is showing, but also teach it when it's my turn to teach the lesson, that always makes me feel really good.
Mm. And do you get almost like a pride, because I feel like a lot of the purple belts that we have at school, they've been at frequency for some time, majority.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you get pride when you see, because like you do, they get to they coach, like their it's technique for the month, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they get to teach the moves. So do you get a little bit of pride when you see that like their game is expanded or that they're doing different things? Does that get you
Oh
excited?
yeah,
Yeah.
dude, I love that because if it was just me putting together a lesson plan, right? We're going to be going over the same stuff,
Mm.
right? And to some of the purple belts and even the brown belts, are be like, man, this there's no flash, there's no sizzle, right? And my game would be stagnant. So I've opened the door to all the coaches that we have, even some of like the blue belts who are like smaller than me, where it's like, what is it that you want to go over? Because my game is based off of my body type and my skill set. So yeah, I love it. I love seeing our coaches put together their lesson plan for the month and how they connect everything together, whether it's, hey, here are these two techniques and we're off, or it's, hey, here's this sequence. We're gonna show you move one, move two, move three, and then we're gonna string everything together when it's all said and done and talk about the theory. When I was a purple belt, none of that was there. Again, we were training 2 times a week. The coach had their lesson plan, and we went on. But then as the school grew, I had some coaches who their long term goal is somewhere down the road they're relocating. They're looking to leave the
Mm.
state of Illinois, and they're interested in opening their own school. All right, cool. How can I help you be better off running a school in the next year that we may have, or the next 2 years, or the next 5 years? And if you could be comfortable putting together a lesson plan and teaching in front of a group versus just being the student, I think when that time comes for you to either A, take over for a week or two because I'm on vacation or I may be injured or something, emergency came up, or you're running your own school, I think that goes a long way with the community that I'm looking at building.
Do you, in thinking of like the coaching staff, um, was there what was your most humbling moment with like the coaching staff and them, and like almost like growing up, right? Like in frequency in jujitsu, what was a moment where you're just like, this is where I'm supposed to be?
Um, I think one of the biggest growing up moments was in the kids program. I would put together the lesson plan. I would film the technique, pass it on to the coach so that they were sharing the same message. Um, and then it got to the point where Coach April would reach out to me going, this is the lesson plan that I want to do. And I'm like, I could step back. You have grown up.
Mm.
You are taking the bull by the horns, and now she and her husband, Coach John, the three of us will get together on a weekend, and she'll film the entire lesson plan for the team.
That's
So yeah, that was a pretty amazing moment.
from beginning, right, of your the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of your jiu-jitsu career to now. Did you think that you would make it this far? Honestly, like, did you think you would stick with it?
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
because look, I'm 48 years old. I'm a stickler with loyalty. If something's going good, I don't change it. Um, so, for example, um, I got a paper route when I was like 12, and I had that paper route up until I was 16. When I was 16, I got a job at an ice cream video game shop in my hometown. I stayed with that till I was like 17 or 18 when Menards opened up in my hometown. And I went to work for Menards in like 1993. I was with Menards until maybe 1998, where I got a job at another lumber store. Um, I was at that lumber store until I got my full time job at the radio station. Okay. I stayed at that radio station from 1999 until 2002. I worked at that second radio station for maybe 16 years. So I went to another radio station for 8 years. So what is that?
Yeah.
Eight,
Yeah.
eight jobs. Um, you know, I was 16. I bought a 1956 Ford Fairlane. Um, I thought I was going to be like a gearhead and it was going to turn that thing into grease lightning. Um, After all my friends were going out and having fun on the weekends, I decided I got to get rid of this car. It's got too much of my money is going into it. So I got a 1994 Chevy S10. Um, after like 3-4 years of helping people move, I'm like, I gotta get rid of the pickup truck because
Mm.
everyone's calling me to help them move, and I don't want to
Yeah.
be moving couches for the rest of my life. So I got a '93 Chevy Cavalier Z24.
Mm.
Traded that in 10, 15 years later before my first daughter was born for a Jeep Liberty. After the Jeep Liberty, got a Jeep Trailhawk. Now I got my Blazer. Okay. I've been driving for over 30 years. I've only had 6 vehicles.
Yeah.
Um, so when I started jujitsu, looking at, the mentality that I had of like, I'm not out looking to chase the next hottest thing. It's like, this is what I enjoy doing. Everything runs smoothly. I'm going to keep doing it. I think I'd still be doing jujitsu even if I wasn't the school owner.
Mm. Okay. And gonna ask the same question. In the last
Yeah.
17 years of your jiu-jitsu career, um, what is the message that you want to leave behind in jiu-jitsu? You know, if there was a
Um,
stamp that you could have.
oh, geez. Um, just surround yourself with people who want you to succeed. You know, um, they're going to be people that come into your life that, um, you know, just are going to be selfish. They're going to want you for you, right? Um, but at the same time, if you're not doing things that are making you happy, that are keeping you healthy, it's not going to be, a pleasant situation that you're going to find yourself in. Um, the whole adversity. It's like, we're all going to have bad days, right? But we got to have something that brings us joy, whether it's training jujitsu, playing video games, um, drawing, anything. You got to find something that brings you happiness.
And for you, that's jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, yeah.
That's dope. That's all. That's about all the questions I have.
That's cool, man. That's cool.
Uh,
I appreciate you wanting to do this. It's wonderful. To field questions instead of coming up with questions because, like I said, for like over 17 years, talking with teammates, I'm always asking the same questions. What motivated you? What do you like about it? And to have teammates reach out to you with questions. It's one of those things where it's like you've got some teammates who, I'm just coming in to train jujitsu. That's good enough for me. And then you have others that are like, I really want to be a part of the community. So it's great that while you wanted to spearhead this and ask the questions, you had other teammates that when you reached out to them saying, "Hey, I'm going to be, chatting with Coach Ed. What are some things you want to ask that they also took the initiative to reach back out to you."
well, I think it's cool because, it's like I'm a white belt, and then here's this black belt, and being able to have this open dialogue, and you know, you and I know for you, it's we're all teammates, and for me, it is the same. But if you don't go to the 5 a.m.s, or if you don't hit you know, the what is it, Tuesday, Thursday classes that you teach, like
Mm-hmm.
they might miss you, and then all they have is these other coaches. So it's like when they do see you, it's automatic for them to put you on a pedestal. It's hard for them to build that rapport, right?
Yeah.
So it's great to get this side of you of seeing that, like, oh, he is the person that puts his pants on one leg at a time. Oh, he is this human being that has ups and downs in his life and his journey of jujitsu, and you're become so more relatable by just opening up and sharing it in a way that, like, now people that don't get to come to those certain classes, they get to see who you are. I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing these moments and being comfortable enough to answer the questions. I mean, I know you do ask the questions to a lot of people, but to be on that end, it's cool.
It is different. It is different. And again, I thought it was funny. It's like you want to do like a trial run. Like you wanted to send like all the questions to me. I'm like, no, no,
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
don't send me the questions, man. Let's just have a natural conversation and see what happens, naturally. And again, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to do this.
yeah, man. Of course. Again, I really am honored that you would even be up for something like this. Like, just to get to know you in a better light, to see you differently. I mean, I know we have a lot of conversations after the morning class, but It is different when it's like, oh, I get to ask you all the questions I want to. It's not like you can say, you're not gonna say nah, or I have to go. Like,
Yeah.
nah, I got you for a certain amount of time. I'm gonna ask what I want, and it's like
Yeah.
the thing that I really enjoyed about this was your ability to just answer openly and honestly. Like when you were sharing about your dad, like I really appreciate that. Like I've lost my father, so I know that it's hard, but it's like again, coming from just that jujitsu side, it's like it's easy to get lost in that hierarchy, and it's easy to lose the humanity of the person behind the belt. You know,
Yeah.
so I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you very much for doing this. And anytime you want to revisit, just let me know.
Will do.
All right. Awesome. I'll go ahead. I'll get this all saved, and then once it all converts, I'll get it. I'll get these little side conversations out, and I'll get it up on YouTube.
All right, cool, cool. Let me know when you put it up because I'd like to watch it.
Will do. You'll be the
All
first
right,
one to know.
all right,
All right,
coach.
buddy. Take care.
Bye.